I went home like 2 hours later and it was never spoken of again.
The untold story for millions of women.
You cover it up, and those issues come out in so many different ways.
Plus, are we living in the end times? Could God be sending a message of warning to Americans? And were the attacks of 9/11 predicted more than 3,000 years ago? The best-selling author of The Harbinger, Jonathan Cahn, reveals the answers.
Well, welcome to this edition of the 700 Club. 55 million abortions. 55 million. But what does that do to the women who have experienced abortions? Is there some deep secret they don't want to talk about? Well, we've got an in-depth look at that later on in this program as to the emotional effect on the lives of the women who have had abortions. But first of all, in the news, the Boy Scouts are on the griddle. Do they want scoutmasters who are gay, or do they want boys who are gay, or do they want neither? Well, it's their moment of truth, and their board is getting ready to vote today.
Scouts across the country say that change would be huge, especially because churches sponsor the majority of Scout troops. Heather Sells has the story.
For the Scouts, the stakes couldn't be higher. Churches sponsor 69% of all Scout units. The largest are the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the United Methodist Church, the Catholic Church, and Baptist churches. So far, Catholic and Mormon leaders have withheld official comment on the proposed change, but Southern Baptist leaders have spoken against it. The Reverend Albert Mohler recently blogged that the proposed policy is almost sure to please no one and to lead to disaster for the Scouts. 3 religious liberty law firms are also warning that lifting the ban would jeopardize church-based troops that support the current policy. In southeastern Virginia, churches sponsor 80% of the units, and leaders say members are concerned.
The Boy Scouts of America currently has about 3 million members. And the 3 million members have been sold on membership standards as they have been for quite a long time. We're running into a moment where there might be a national shift in those standards, so there are naturally a lot of people who are very concerned.
Gay activists delivered over 1 million signatures to the Boy Scout headquarters this week, but they say the proposed change to allow local troops to decide whether or not to allow gays as members does not go far enough. The Human Rights Campaign says the Scouts must adopt a nationwide policy to accept gays as both Scouts and leaders. What the Scouts decide this week could well affect membership, which is already in serious decline.
At the moment, it's very, very noticeable that there are people who are sitting on the fence and they don't know whether or not they want their families to personally invest in the program through membership, because they want to know what the outcome of this decision is going to be.
Tomorrow, those who oppose lifting the ban will hold a prayer vigil outside Scout headquarters in Texas. And both sides are urging their supporters to call headquarters today in a last-ditch effort to influence the Scouts. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thanks, Heather. Keep in mind, the Boy Scouts are a private organization. It's one of the hallmarks of America that we have individual organizations of people of like mind. This isn't a public organization that the state needs to get involved in. But what's happening is that they're making it look more like a congressional thing, so the Congress gets involved. They have no business fooling with the Boy Scouts, and the Boy Scouts ought to be free to do what they want to do. And the board should feel free to do what it wants to do. And that's just the way it is. And I think that this organization has done so much for so many young men. And the question is, are there predators as Boy Scouts, pedophiles who would come in as scoutmasters? And if they are, then of course parents wouldn't want their sons being involved in the Boy Scouts or their daughters in the Girl Scouts. That's not a pleasant situation, but it's a private organization. I misspoke. The board is not meeting to deliver today. They're going to vote tomorrow on what to do. So our prayers are with them that they will do what they feel is right for them, not what the political correct crowd thinks is right for them. Well, if you think you've been paying more for gasoline in the last few days, you are right. Lee Webb has that story for the CBN Newsroom. Lee.
Pat, the price of gas shot up in just the last week alone. It's up 18 cents to $3.54 a gallon. That is the biggest weekly increase in 2 years. Analysts say the stronger economy is one reason prices are higher. The price of oil has been climbing steadily in recent weeks, close to $100 a barrel again. And many refineries are doing maintenance at this time of year, but experts do not think gas will hit last year's highs. Republicans criticized the Obama White House again for not meeting Monday's deadline to produce a federal budget. It is the third straight year the administration has not produced a spending plan on time, and the fourth time in the last 5 years. The White House isn't saying when it will release its budget for next year. Congressional Republicans, though, will vote on a bill tomorrow that would require the president to submit a plan that balances the budget eventually. Republicans have repeatedly said that Washington is spending too much, but the president and Democratic leaders are still calling for more tax revenues. Pat?
Well, you know, the Senate hasn't had a budget they've passed in the last 3 years. And as I understood, the negotiations that have just taken place in some of these fiscal things requires the Senate to come up with a budget. They're supposed to by law, but they haven't. Year after year after year, they punt. They don't do a budget, which is kind of shocking. The amount of money they're spending, and that's why the president says, well, you know, the amount of spending really isn't of great concern to me. Well, it should be concern to all of us. Lee?
President Obama is taking his case for gun control to the public, but it may face a tougher time on Capitol Hill. The president says he feels like there's a consensus building to pass new gun laws. He's calling on Americans to put pressure on Congress.
Now, changing the status quo is never easy. This will be no exception. The only way we can reduce gun violence in this country is if the American people decide it's important, if you decide it's important. If parents and teachers, police officers and pastors, hunters and sportsmen, Americans of every background stand up and say, this time it's got to be different.
The Senate is set to take up a bill that has most of the ideas the president supports, background checks and limiting the capacity of ammunition magazines, but it does not seem likely that some of the president's other proposals will pass, like banning so-called assault weapons. Pat?
Lee, as I understand it, there are 300 million firearms in the hands of the American people. They aren't about to give them up. And all these measures are the kind of Band-Aids that the Congress needs to do because they're told you must do something. Well, they did something a few years ago, and it had absolutely no effect whatsoever. And if they want to do something, they need to have a national database of people with mental illness. And they need to check how many people are being prescribed various types of mood-altering drugs, Zantac, Prozac, etc., and find out what the effects of those drugs is having on people. And if you go back and look at some of the egregious examples of gun violence, it is not the guns, it is the crazy people, and the people have been hopped up on these prescribed drugs, many of them youngsters that aren't capable of handling these things. And psychologists and psychiatrists are handing out these drugs like it's a jar of candy, and the kids can't handle it. But we've got a good generation that's on Ritalin, they're on all kinds of mood-altering drugs, and it's just standard. Somebody, well, you've got some kind of ADHD, you know, attention deficit disorder, and all of a sudden now you've got to get some drug. And then if that doesn't work and begins to make you a little bit spacey, then you just got another drug. And then there's another drug and another drug, and before long these poor children don't know what to do. And you have over and over again, people are talking about these psychiatric hospitals that are overprescribing. That's where we need to start and get off this kick about, well, I'm going to limit the magazines. It's not going to have 12 shots, it'll only have 6. Well, you can kill somebody very well with 6 shots. You can have a revolver that just has 6 shots, and you can do all the damage you want to with it. So it's not the guns that's the problem, it is the people who have them and those who are prescribing medicine to these youngsters that get their hands on guns. So let's do that. Why didn't Congress start talking about a database? Let's have, if that shooter at the Virginia Tech a few years ago, if they had only been able to release his mental records to the school, they could have stopped him, but they were forbidden by law from doing it. They couldn't let the school know that they had a dangerous psychopath in their midst. Think about it. Lee?
Pat, turning overseas now, for the past year, Islamic militants have ruled portions of the West African nation of Mali. The Islamic radicals took those parts of the country by force. Now, French and Malian forces are driving out those rebels and freeing the people who were forced to live under the cruelty of Islamic Sharia law. Ephraim Graham has that story.
Gao residents danced in the street, celebrating their town's liberation from Islamic extremists. But that celebration soon turned to anger, with Mali citizens looting Islamic police headquarters and lashing out against any sign of the 10 months of oppression they endured. In that time, Islamist rebels amputated the hands of these two men for supporting the Malian government. This man says, Islamic police cut my hand and showed it to the crowds. He says jihadists tortured me for 3 months before hacking my hand off in front of everyone. A fight against memories of the Islamist oppression also played out here in the streets of a newly liberated Timbuktu. Crowds of looters attacking shops once owned by rebels. There are also many stories of torture in this town in the last 10 months, like public flogging. Azahara was a victim. She recalls, "I wanted to die. It was better to die than to live through this. My brother was shot and killed by rebels last week for breaking Islamic rules." With the rebels now gone, France's defense minister is calling its 3-week military operation in Mali a success. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
The U.S. Justice Department is suing the Standard & Poor's rating service. They're the big financial services company that publishes stock market indices like the S&P 500. The Obama administration accuses S&P of helping cause the mortgage crisis. They allege S&P willfully tried to defraud investors with inaccurate ratings on the mortgage bonds that were loaded with risky subprime mortgages. S&P, though, defends their ratings. Pat, they say they were issued in good faith.
Well, you know, I don't know about rating agencies. There's no question the rating agencies were complicit, but they gave AAA ratings to these bundles of toxic mortgages. But was it the fault of the rating agencies? There was a whole chain. The people who sold the mortgages were getting big fees. They were lying. They had liar loans, no doc loans. They, in turn, went up to the big boys in New York, and they packaged them into bite-sized securities and then got the rating agencies to give them AAA standing. They were all complicit, but as far as I can tell, there's been no Justice Department action against the big boys on Wall Street, and they're the ones that made the money on it. So why don't we go after them? Well, we don't go after them because they are too powerful and they give too much money to politicians. Lee.
Well, baby boomers are living longer than previous generations, but that doesn't mean they're any healthier. A new study finds they're more likely to have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Researchers also say baby boomers have a greater chance of chronic disease and disability. They're also more likely to be obese. All of this causes concern over the rising cost of health care, but there is some good news. Baby boomers are less likely to smoke than previous generations, so there's less emphysema and fewer heart attacks. So some good news there, Pat.
You know, I had a letter. I get letters, all kinds of letters. Do you get letters?
Yes, of course.
I get strange letters.
What a surprise.
You know, I have children who are in that age group.
Age bracket, sure.
And this person objected. They said, you must stop calling these people baby boomers. They're senior citizens. Well, I said, you know, I am a senior citizen, but my son is a baby boomer. You don't understand.
Well, I mean, we label, each generation kind of has a standard
Generation
title
Y,
that we...
Generation X.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a convenient label, but I think no insult is being made. It just happens to be a lot of people. There was a boom of babies right after World War II.
Exactly, that are now coming into retirement years. I do think also in conjunction with what was shared in that report that there's more stress in people's lives today, and that our food supply is more tainted than it ever has been.
We mentioned that with Laurie yesterday. The amount of junk that's being ingested by people is just appalling. And well, we try to keep you healthy, ladies and gentlemen, even if we're labeling you by the generation you are part of. But I guess
I'm a boomer and proud of it.
Are you a boomer?
I'm a boomer.
You're not a distinguished senior citizen.
No, I refuse that discount.
Well, I think you should. I think you should. I'm not sure what I am, but whatever it is, I'm a depression baby.
Let's settle for that.
I was born during the Great Depression, and that's why I'm so scarred. All right, Terry, what's next?
Well, coming up, an ancient mystery is revealed, one that may have dire consequences for America. But first, millions of women are carrying around a secret of their own, and finally, a few are speaking out. We want you to hear what they're saying, and that's next.
I'm only in my 60s. I've got a nice long life ahead, big plans. So when I found out Medicare doesn't pay all my medical expenses, I got a Medicare supplement insurance plan.
If you're eligible for Medicare, you may know it only covers about 80% of your Part B medical expenses. The rest is up to you. Call and find out about an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company. Like all standardized Medicare supplement plans, it could save you thousands in out-of-pocket costs. Call now to request your free decision guide.
I've been with my doctor for 12 years. Now I know I'll be able to stick with them.
You'll be able to visit any doctor or hospital that accepts Medicare patients. Plus, there are no networks, and you never need a referral. See why millions of people have already enrolled in the only Medicare supplement insurance plans endorsed by AARP. Don't wait. Call now.
Wednesday, miracles from the Muslim world.
As soon as I looked over, I had known that Jesus was the Christ, sacrificed, the Son of God.
Plus, words of wisdom from swamp logger's Bobby Goodson.
Son, find a niche in life and you'll make a living.
And then, a survival guide for parents raising a rebellious child. We'll tell you the do's and don'ts. Wednesday on the 700 Club.
Have we in the land of the free and the home of the brave slaughtered more innocent people than the Nazis killed during the Holocaust? In the Holocaust, 6 million innocent people were slaughtered. It was horrific. We are repulsed by the excesses of the Nazis. And to think that those people, supposedly a very civilized people that brought forth great philosophers and musicians, could have allowed somebody like Hitler and the Nazis free rein. We're horrified by it. And yet here in America, the land of the free, we have slaughtered. If it was 6 million, we slaughtered 55 million. You can figure the ratio.
Yeah.
And this is what America, and this is a stain on our national conscience. What have we allowed to happen? And we talk about reproductive rights, but reproductive to allow the slaughter of innocent babies? Well, even though you don't hear much about it in the media, many of the women who have gone through this procedure to remove what has been euphemistically called a blob of tissue have serious emotional anguish. And now many of them are speaking out. And they're telling the whole world what abortion did to them. Paul Strand has this remarkable story.
Recently, 5 women gathered together to find peace after many years of torment.
For myself, I just thought of, like, you know, I've been detestable to God.
Each has aborted a child.
That it disturbs me to know that I'm a murderer.
Each tried to keep it a secret.
I went home like 2 hours later, and it was never spoken of again in my family.
Each realized that was only prolonging the unceasing pain. How they've gone from that pain to peace is what a new web series, Surrender the Secret, is all about. These aren't just 5 of a few. It's the great untold story that millions of American women never get over their abortions. Katie Flood leads the same kind of Bible study featured in Surrender the Secret. She talked to CBN News at the 2013 March for Life.
They say 43% of women will have an abortion.
That's right, 43% of American women under age 45. Katie became one of them 25 years ago. She said the emotional pain after caused her immense problems.
When you have an abortion, you cover it up and you try to just move on and do life, and those issues come out in so many different ways.
Depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and suicidal thoughts and behaviors, and it's a very widespread problem.
Anna Higgins at the Family Research Council's Center for Human Dignity says there's a reason women often keep this torment a secret.
There's a lot of guilt and regret associated with abortions.
92% of these women feel emotional deadening, 86% rage, and up to 80% suffer post-abortion trauma.
I was numb. I was lost. And there was a girl laying in the cot next to me who was just weeping. She was so broken.
In Surrender the Secret, Jane tells of her abortion.
Started to cramp, you know, my body started going through all these changes. And I mean, it was just horrible, having to think about what was going on.
It was all for a young man who still left her.
And I loved this boy so much that I was willing to sacrifice my own baby to hold on to him.
In the series, Courtney tells of disappointing her stern father.
I was in youth group. I was the perfect daughter. And I ended up pregnant.
The father forced her to get rid of it, and she remembers the abortionist describing an injection.
And that's going to make your baby have a heart attack. You may feel him thrash around, and that's just him passing. On June 21st at 5:35, I had my son into a bedpan sitting on a bed. They put him into a container and carried him out of the room.
This is what is true. This is what is real. This is what happens to women when they've had an abortion. This is the fallout that they feel.
It's the worst experience of my life. And I named him. And to this day, my dad still won't talk to me about it.
The Bible study showcased in Surrender the Secret tries to undo all this, mostly by using God's truth to expose the lies Satan tells women.
The biggest one is that God can never forgive you for what you've done. And God not only will not forgive you, but there will be retribution upon you.
In Ezekiel 34, he says, I will search for the lost and bring back the strays. I will bind up the injured and strengthen the weak. Right now, when we feel the most broken, he's putting it all back together.
Here at this year's March for Life, we saw many women who had signs that said, I regret my abortion. But for many millions more, they keep it to themselves as a painful secret. Now imagine if they were willing to surrender that secret and openly share and confess to the pain from that abortion. Just how much that could change the abortion culture in America.
Pro-abortion activists are kind of touting abortion as health care, but if we did have millions of women stand up and say, hey, this is not health care, this is harmful. Health care is not supposed to harm. That would make a huge impact.
I think it would have profound effects for our entire country to stand up and say, I was one of those women that chose abortion, that thought it was okay, that thought it was the right choice to make. And now I don't think it's the right choice, and I don't want any other woman to have to suffer. So I think it would be amazing.
Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the National Mall in Washington.
It seems like the debate is shifting in America, that the majority of the people now feel that abortion is wrong, especially among the young. You know, they say, you know, it's a baby. And the, you know, young children are thinking, well, what if it had been me?
Yeah. Well, we're also so much more knowledgeable about the development of life in vitro, and when the heartbeat begins, and seeing the baby suck its thumb and blink its eyes and move, and just realizing this is a child taking responsibility.
Well, it's Jay Sekulow calls it the abortion distortion, and it's been this incredible miasma of confusion that talks about women's rights, women's reproductive rights, and this is a health decision and so forth. As somebody said, it isn't healthy to murder somebody and to kill a life.
It is, however, profitable.
Extraordinarily profitable. You will not believe how much money is sitting in bank accounts in abortion providers, Planned Parenthood particularly. I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. And Planned Parenthood is now taking from the federal government in excess of $500 million in this year's budget. $500+ million of taxpayer money going to the leading abortion provider in the nation. Well, we'll be hearing more about Planned Parenthood as we go down the road, but not on this program. Terry.
Well, when terrorists struck on 9/11, they knocked down the Twin Towers and also a sycamore tree near Ground Zero. To one best-selling author, that's not a coincidence. It's a warning. Hear why. That's next.
I started feeling pain between my spine and my shoulder blade. There was a sizable mass consistent with malignant cancer. That's complex, that's tough stuff.
To find out more about our unique treatment options for complex and advanced stage cancer, go to cancercenter.com. You'll be able to see our treatment results for many types of cancers and how they compare to national averages. You can also check for participating insurance plans. Cancer Treatment Centers of America is different. It's state-of-the-art medicine, unique treatment options, and a level of compassion that cannot be copied. Why? Our people. People who give you not only their expertise, but their humanity and the most well-organized, patient-centered care you'll find anywhere.
My strength came back. I began to become myself again. I'm so happy that I went to CTCA.
Every minute counts when you're fighting complex or advanced stage cancer, so please call or visit cancercenter.com today. Appointments are available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
What treasures of wisdom are hidden in the Bible? Many times we don't even see it. We overlook it. We read it and are not aware of what they mean. The book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 10 says, quote, "The bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with hewn stone. The sycamores are cut down, but we will replace them with cedars." It's a verse of defiance of what would happen after Israel was invaded. But as one spoken by the leaders of Israel thousands of years ago. But as our next guest explains, it's a verse that carries a prophetic significance for the United States of America.
The stock market crash in 2008, the collapse of the American economy, the horrors of 9/11. Jonathan Cahn says these events were predicted thousands of years ago in the Bible. In his book, The Harbinger Companion, Jonathan explains the parallels between ancient Israel and America and shares the secrets that bring hope for our future.
Well, Jonathan Cahn is here with us, and my dear friend, your book, The Harbinger, just moved me. It moved millions of people to become a bestseller, and it touched you. How did it affect you, this whole story?
It changed everything. I mean, I knew it would go forth. I didn't have a doubt that this was the Lord, it wasn't me. And it was a year ago, I was here, and you said, I want Jonathan on this day. And you didn't know that was the day of the release of the book. And it went forth. It went to the New York Times that week. It has been on the New York Times every week since then. It's changed everything. I mean, for me, there's no time for anything. And it's been going forth. It just went past 1 million now copies, and it's been going to across denominational lines. It's been reaching the Capitol Hill. We're getting calls from, or we've gotten contact from people in Congress who are reading it. It's just been going wild.
This verse in Isaiah was spoken when judgment was being assessed against Israel.
Yes.
What the Assyrians were going to invade.
Yes.
And this was their answer. It wasn't a faith thing, it was a rebellious thing.
Yeah, this was, you know, the Harbinger, you know, begins with the last days of ancient Israel. And this is a nation that had known God. I mean, you gave some stories here about what's happening in America right now, and it's very dramatic. And a nation that knew God turned away from God, and God warned them. And so he allowed this strike to happen on the land. And their response, instead of turning back to God, which was what he wanted, is they defy him. And there are 9 harbingers that appear in the land that are warnings of what will happen if it doesn't turn back to God. And instead of turning back, they defy him, and years later, they will be destroyed. And this is a pattern in the Bible. And with America, we are now the nation that has known God, that is turning from God, and God is warning. And the same exact pattern, the scary thing or the amazing thing, is that the same 9 harbingers that appeared in the last days of ancient Israel are now reappearing on American soil. They're happening the same way, specifically beginning with 9/11, this warning strike, and now affecting everything. Some appeared in New York City, some have appeared in Washington, D.C., some have involved American leaders, some involved the President of the United States, and it affects everything, and it's specific.
In Isaiah, they said, we will rebuild. And you pointed out how the leaders of our government, Tom Daschle and others, quoted this very scripture, said, we will rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, it's eerie, because if they had any idea what they were doing, they never would do it. And this is one of the harbingers, is that the leaders of the ancient land actually vow this vow. And so on the very day after 9/11, Tom Daschle from the Senate floor, or from the floor of Congress, says there's a word for America now. And out of his mouth comes the ancient declaration that pronounces judgment on a nation. And then John Edwards does the same thing. And then President Obama, in a paraphrase, without realizing what he's doing, does the same thing. I mean, it's eerie, and but it's exactly word for word, and that's the mystery. It's happening. And when they said that, when Daschle said it, he didn't realize he spoke of a tree. He didn't know there was an actual tree that fell down. He speaks about the stone that's going to go up. He didn't know that's actually going to happen. He's speaking of the harbingers, and it's happening, but he doesn't realize what he's saying.
There was a stone. Tell us about the stone.
Yeah, the stone in the book. It's the stone of judgment is the fifth harbinger, and it goes right down the vow of Isaiah. Isaiah says they vow, we will rebuild with quarried stone. That's Israel after the attack. So here's what happens after 9/11. The people of New York go up to the mountains of New York. They quarry out this massive rectangular stone. It matches. It's called a biblical gazit stone. They bring it to the ground of destruction. This is the harbinger that has to be. They have a ceremony around the stone. American leaders vow vows of defiance over the stone, that we're going to come back stronger than ever, just as ancient Israel did. And it's like they're reenacting exactly what happened then without realizing what they're doing.
They didn't realize they were cutting a stone in upstate New York. There was the gazit stone.
They had no idea, no idea, and every single harbinger gets fulfilled like this without people realizing what they're doing. And then you have the sycamore. The sycamore it says, Isaiah said they will rebuild. It says the sycamores have been cut down. So what it means is, this is the 6th harbinger of the book, that there has to be the striking down of a sycamore. It's a biblical sign of judgment, a national judgment in the Bible, the cutting down of the tree. It has to happen, it has to be linked to 9/11 or the attack. And so what happens in the last moments of 9/11, an eerie thing happens, that the tower, as it's coming down, sends forth a shockwave, sends forth a beam into the air. It strikes an object. The object happens to be a tree. It happens to be a sycamore. The sycamore has fallen at the corner of Ground Zero. The people of New York, they put it on display, they make it a sign, and they call it the sycamore of Ground Zero. They think it's a great thing, and they don't realize this is the biblical sign of judgment. Everything in that verse, Isaiah, came true.
Well, they came and replanted, though, didn't they?
The next thing is right down the line, the sycamores have fallen, and the people of Israel says, well, we will plant cedars in their place. The biblical word is erez tree. It can be a cedar, can be a spruce. But they're again an act of defiance, saying, we're going to come back stronger, so God, you're not going to humble us. We're going to put a stronger tree here. And so what happens, the 7th harbinger is 2 years after 9/11, a tree appears in the sky. It's at the corner of Ground Zero. It's being lowered down into place, into an exact place to replace the sycamore. This is an act. This is the act what they did in ancient Israel. It puts it down, and they call it the tree of hope. They have a ceremony around the tree. They say, we know this is a tree of nothing's going to stop us. And the tree is a biblical erez tree, the same tree of the Hebrew of Isaiah 9:10. They have no idea what they're doing. Nobody's planning this.
An era is like a conifer?
It's a conifer tree, or a panache tree, yes, and it can be a cedar, it can be a spruce, and that's exactly what it was. Exactly what it was. Everything that was there, and the harbingers are the beginning. It's not the end. It's the beginning of the shaking of America. And then the next part of it, if you follow what happened to Israel, the next part is that there was a second shaking because they defied God. Yeah. So God says, well, there's going to be another one. Well, what comes after is the economic shaking of America. We're still in the shadow of it. Yeah. And it happens with the collapse. And it opens up a whole other stream of biblical mysteries, and one of them I could just touch is the Shemitah. And the Shemitah is that every 7 years in Israel, it was kind of like an economic wipe away, you know, as a blessing. But what happened is at the end of it, on this exact one day called Elul 29, all the nation's debts are wiped out, the accounts are wiped out, all wiped away, and as a blessing. But as the nation turned away from God, the Shemitah turns into a sign of judgment. Jeremiah says that's actually God uses that as the timing of judgment. Well, what does it have to do with America? You have the first shaking, 9/11. You have the second shaking, the economic collapse. Well, the Shemitah is always 7 years apart. It's a 7-year thing. So when did the collapse of the American economy happen? Happened 7 years after 2001. In September, 7 years to the month of 9/11. It happened the second week of September. That's 7 years to the week of 9/11. And the greatest day of this collapse was the end of September, the greatest collapse in American history, period. Greatest collapse. When did it take place? It took place on Elul 29, the exact day appointed in the Bible for the wiping away of a nation's financial accounts as a sign of judgment of a nation that has turned away from God.
Let's repeat. This is the exact day, the Elul?
The exact day and the exact hours. And it's the exact hours that happened. And not only that, and if you go back 7 years, because it's a 7-year mystery, you find 2001, you have the other greatest collapse in American history up to that day. Happened after 9/11. And when did that collapse take place? It took place on the exact same Elul 29, the day of appointed to wipe away a nation's financial account. And they happened exactly 7 Hebrew biblical years apart to the day, to the hours, the 2 greatest collapses up to those days. And it wasn't just on any day. It only comes once every 7 years. They both happened on the exact once in 7 year.
Well, we are having the greatest financial problem in the history of this nation. I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, the amount of debt is so insupportable. It's not just America, it's the whole world.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way out of it.
Yeah, which is also, I mean, that you just brought up something that's another sign in the Bible. It says, if you're blessed, you follow me, you're going to lend to many nations.
Yeah.
If you turn away from me, you're going to be in debt. We went from the greatest creditor nation to the greatest debtor nation, just in the same way as we are moving away from God. And the harbingers, Pat, the other thing is, it's continuing. I mean, we asked how it affected me. One of the things that kind of shocked me, even when my wife told me something, I didn't believe her, and I wrote the book. She said, is that what's in the book is actually been coming true, and it's actually been confirmed. It's actually continuing. It didn't stop a year ago. I mean, it's continuing. There is one of the harbingers is the tower, you know, at Ground Zero, and you know, and that was with Israel, the sign was that, hey, they said we're going to rebuild higher, bigger, stronger, but without God, and it takes the form of the tower. In an ancient translation called the Septuagint, when they first translated the Bible, they did a strange thing with Isaiah 9:10. They said, the bricks have fallen. It said, but come let us build for ourselves a tower. They literally said a tower. So that a tower is going to rise on the ground of destruction. The nation's going to do this. That's exactly what's happening in New York City. This is the harbinger that's continuing to go up. It's happening. And the idea is higher, bigger, stronger. Now, they got that verse when they said, come let us build for a tower. The rabbis got it from the Tower of Babel. And so they're linking the Tower of Babel to Isaiah 9:10. That's what they did. Now, I don't know if you know, I found out since I wrote the book that actually there was a scripture in the ruins of Ground Zero. There was a scripture embedded in the ruins of Ground Zero.
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. And this is after a book. And it was a photographer got it. It was a charred Bible, and there was one page left. He took a picture, was whisked out. He looked at it, started weeping. And it was right there where they're going to build the tower. The scripture was, come let us build for ourselves a tower.
And that's the Tower of Babel.
That was the Tower of Babel, and the only other place it appears in the ancient translation is Isaiah 9:10, the scripture of the harbinger in there. And so here, this tower's been going up. It's been going up, and only this year it broke through and it became the tallest building in New York. You know, it broke through, and that's the whole point of it. And the day it did, and there was a tension on this tower, it became the biggest thing. It was April 30th. In the Harbinger, that's the date given for the mystery of Ground Zero. April 30th is in the Harbinger. And the president, Pat, this is 6 months 6 months after the book came out when we were here. The president came to Ground Zero, and they showed him a beam. This is in the summer. And they showed him a beam. It's going to be the final beam of the tower. And they said, write words on the beam. Now, you know that in the book, as the third witness, he gives this paraphrase. And the way to sum up Isaiah 9:10 in our language is simply two. We will rebuild, number one, and we'll come back stronger. He writes on the beam, we rebuild, we come back stronger. On the beam, the highest words in America, crowning the tower.
And the president wrote those words.
He wrote the very words. And when my wife told me this, I didn't believe her. And when I looked at it, it's going to be the highest thing in America. It's going to be the highest. It's the words. It's paraphrase of Isaiah 9:10. And in the ancient Hebrew, when they made this vow that brought destruction, it's 8 Hebrew words. Isaiah 9:10. 8 Hebrew words. The president added 2, so he put 8 English words, matching the 8 Hebrew words of Isaiah on the tower. And the central word of both is rebuild, in both the fourth word of both. I mean, it parallels exactly. It's uncanny. And there's another one. I'll tell you, I'll throw in that, you know, in the Bible, one of the signs of national judgment we spoke about is the tree. And God says, this tree, you're going to wither. It talks about a nation withering, or he says, I'm going to cut off the branches of the tree. So it's a biblical sign. Well, there is one of the harbingers is this tree of hope at Ground Zero. And what has happened, you know, this was a symbol of America. Well, what happened to that harbinger? If you go there, I went back. The tree of hope is withering away. Withering away. Withering away. They can't stop it from withering away. They literally, if you go there, the branches they're cutting off the branches. It's being held up by ropes. Everything around it is green, but the tree is withering, and everything right next to the tree is withering away. They can't do that. A sign of a nation that spiritually is withering. I mean, you know, and while America is saying we're going to get stronger, without coming back to God, it's withering. And I'll just mention one other thing which I didn't know back then is God was actually, I believe, was actually connecting this together before I even wrote the book and to millions of Americans. There's something called the 1-year Bible, and we all know it. It's, you know, and every day you've got a day and you got a thing to read. Well, I didn't realize if you go to the 1-year Bible, almost any 1-year Bible, and you open up to find Isaiah 9:10, and you look at the top, you'll see a date. It says September 11th. On every 1-year Bible, it links together the verse that is about the first strike of judgment. It gives the date 9/11, and the 1-year Bible came out years before 9/11, and people are reading every year on 9/11. They're opening up to Isaiah 9:10. It's saying, and here is talking about the first strike. It's giving the date, and next to it they have a psalm they put next to it, and the psalm says there will be destruction in the city. Destruction in the city, and the word it uses for destruction is in Hebrew it means devastation, but it also means something in Arabic. In Arabic, the same word in the Bible means Islamic fanaticism or fanaticism. The word is Hamas. It's in the Bible.
Hamas.
And it is there. You can look at it for you'll see 9/11. It speaks of an attack, speaks of fanaticism, speaks of Isaiah 9:10. It was all there for every year for America, millions of Americans.
This is unbelievable. John, what comes next? Is there the Bible? What do you think?
Well, I was watching the show from the background, and it is clear, you know, America right now, as the mainstream culture, is still turning rapidly from God, the culture.
That's right.
And as long as it does, if it does, the pattern is there will be shaking, and until America either returns to God, there's revival, or there is calamity or destruction. And I believe, I mean, people say, is there hope? You know, and I believe if there was no hope, there wouldn't be any harbingers. What's the point of warning if there's no hope? And one of the things we talked about last time was this mystery ground, that the mystery of Ground Zero goes back to this place where America was dedicated to God, and that's where it came. The message is return and come back. And there's something strange. I mean, that the Harbinger, I mean, this year was a real tipping point, I think, in many ways. And yet the Harbinger came out. So I believe that there's this parallel and that there's a warning, but God is calling. And the key is, if my people. I mean, because if we were the salt of the earth we were supposed to be, America wouldn't be as such. If we were the light, it wouldn't be as such. And so the thing is that it's if my people, and the call goes out. And that's why I believe this is going out now. we have to turn to God. We have to be the lights as never before. If it's getting darker, the lights have to get brighter, and we have to get more radical. But this is the time, and this is the reason. There is hope, but the hope is only in Yeshua. You know, in Hebrew, the word for, people say, how can I be safe? Should I build a bomb shelter? In Hebrew, the word for safety is Yeshua, and Yeshua is Jesus. Whose only hope is Jesus. That's it.
Brother, I just thank God for you and for the work you've done. Ladies and gentlemen, the Harbinger we mentioned before, it's a national bestseller, 1 million copies. This is the Harbinger Companion Jonathan has put together to give you a little bit more insight. It's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. God is speaking to our nation, and he's ordained this young man as his prophet. Jonathan, we love you.
Man, I love you too.
God bless you. I don't know, Terry, if you got something to top that. Oh, we're going to have a break. I'm speechless. All right, what's next? Good stuff, man. God bless you.
I use catheters, and if you do too, please listen carefully to this life-changing breakthrough. There is a new catheter that hurts less, and you can get a free sample by calling this number now.
Pain and urinary tract infections have been avoided by many of my patients. These new disposable catheters hurt less. It's an incredible new design that reduces pain. The eyelets are polished, so they glide smoothly and effortlessly across your sensitive skin. The old catheters would scrape and cut, causing pain and infections.
These new catheters are totally different, so smooth and painless. They changed my life.
Call now and get a free sample. Medicare and your insurance will pay for up to 200 of these catheters per month, all at little or no cost to you.
Call now for your free sample, complete with a 90-day supply, and if it doesn't reduce your pain, we'll pick them up for free. Call 800-346-7947. That's 800-346-7947. Call now.
Regent University is amazing.
You can't understand the university unless you visited and met the people.
I felt a sense of peace walking around the campus.
And I just said to myself, that's something I have to check out.
Your calling, your purpose, your future. Find your place at Regent University Preview. Call 800-373-5504 or visit www.regent.edu/preview.
Welcome to Washington for the CBN News Break. A baker in Oregon is being investigated for refusing to make a cake for a gay couple's wedding. A state statute says any place or service open to the public must provide full accommodations without distinctions based on race, color, religion, sex, or sexual orientation. The same-sex couple claims Aaron Klein violated that statute by refusing service. Now the state's attorney general is looking into the case. Klein says he shouldn't be forced to violate his religious beliefs.
If I am told that I have to make a wedding cake for a same-sex marriage, I feel that I'm violating my beliefs. I don't think I should have to do that.
Klein says despite the investigation, he will stand up for what he thinks is right. 3 Alabama lawmakers are working to allow the 10 Commandments to be displayed in any public building in the state. They're proposing the Alabama Religious Freedom Amendment as a safeguard against lawsuits trying to ban the amendments, or the commandments rather. Several private groups have offered to provide funding if a suit is filed. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Pat and Terry will be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.
Being a small business owner is tough. If only I had a new website that could bring me more business. But money's always so tight. How could I afford it? What can I do? If only someone could just show me a sign.
Now you can have a state-of-the-art website built for your small business by the experts at web.com absolutely free. And that's not all. Call now and web.com will promote your new website on Google, Yahoo, Bing, and hundreds of other places online. If after 30 days you're happy with your new website, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance all for one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing. Call now and you can get your new site up and running in as little as 7 days free. Over 3 million small businesses rely on web.com every day. Call now and find out why.
Call 1-866-881-9170 today. That's 1-866-881-9170.
Jack and I are having the time of our lives. The kids are on their own, and now we're back in control of our time and the way we spend our money.
That's why Consumer Cellular is the perfect cell phone company for us. We get great service, and compared to our old plan, we're saving a ton every month. Consumer Cellular is the wireless provider for people who want affordable service without the contracts.
Listen, I don't think I'm cheap. I only
want to pay for what I need. So what do you pay a month for Consumer Cellular?
My bill can be as low as $10, $15 a month.
Wow. But we can change our plan anytime. So even those months we use it a lot, we're always getting the best price.
Try Consumer Cellular risk-free for 30 days with free activation, a $35 value, and free shipping. Consumer Cellular is the exclusive wireless provider for AARP members. Ask about your special discounts.
Call Consumer Cellular at 1-800-730-5103. Go online to consumercellulartv.com or visit a Sears store today.
To listen to our top songs of the week, go to CBN Radio at cbn.com.
Well, we have some wonderful questions from those of you who have submitted them via email, and we're going to bring it on with some of them right now. Pat, this first one is from Barbara, who says, I've heard some people say that the rapture will take place before the tribulation. Some say that it will take place during the tribulation, and some say it'll take place after it happens. What do you think? Is it possible that there will be multiple raptures?
No, I don't think so. I know I'm stepping on toes on this one, so get ready to get your steel boots on, but the truth is, Jesus said it very clearly. Read the 24th chapter of Matthew, and he says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, then there will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and he will send his angels to gather his elect from the four corners of the earth. Now, that's what it says. That is the rapture, and that is the tribulation. Now, Jesus said it clearly. Now, you've got to come up with some strange theology. Where did it come from? There was a group called the Harbinger back about 1830. Mm-hmm. They had a meeting, and it was like a Pentecostal meeting. 17-year-old girl gets up and starts giving a prophecy. And in attendance was a man named John Nelson Darby. He was taken by this prophecy, which had to do with all this pre-tribulation rapture stuff. So he begins to write. His disciple was a man named C.I. Scofield, mm-hmm. who had a checkered past, if you go back and look at some of the things. Really? Well, I think he was in prison for fraud or something, and then he got his act cleaned up, and he became a noted preacher. But in any event, he edited a Bible, the Scofield Reference Bible, and that became the book, and it went into all this stuff about pre-tribulation rapture and all this, and it's extremely confusing because it is not biblical.
So prior to 1830, or whatever the specific date was, there was no...
There was one coming of Christ, and there was a second coming of Christ, end of story. Not a third, fourth, fifth, or whatever.
Yeah, well, you know, the scripture, I think, that most people hang that on is the, you know, where two are in the field, one will be taken, one will be left. So what does that mean?
Well, that's the rapture. But Jesus mentioned that. He said, I'll send my angels, and he'll gather the elect from the four corners of the earth. He also talks about the angels will take what offends out of his kingdom. And he talked about somebody gathering pearls along the seashore. There are many things that there's a separation. There's no question. So, and Paul was talking about Thessalonians, in a moment, a twinkling of an eye, we'll be caught up to be with the Lord. And there's no doubt that's the blessed hope of the church. But when the Lord comes, that's what the Bible says. It does not say there's going to be a secret slipping away, then there's going to be a 7-year period, and then there's going to be something else. Mm-hmm. It just isn't there. And you have to distort the clear meaning of the Bible in order to have it any other way. So, as I say, I tramped all over some toes because our dear friends in a number of denominations hold firmly to the Scofield reference of the little 17-year-old girl in the Irving 8 meeting in about 1830. That's where you got it. You didn't get it out of the Bible. But I know you'll be mad. Don't write me, write Terry. She will answer all your letters. What's next?
Okay. In between letters, I'd like to ask the next question. This is Tammy, who says, will the Antichrist know that he's the Antichrist? That's an interesting question.
Well, I don't know what he knows, but I would think that the Bible indicates that he is after Satan. He knows exactly that he's a personification of evil. So I think that he will know, and he will know he's doing Satan's bidding.
Okay, this is Jacqueline, who says, my husband and I have 2 incomes. I want to tithe on my income, but my husband objects. What should I do?
Well, we talk about a wife being submissive to her husband. I think that giving is important, but maintaining family unity and harmony is more important.
Yeah.
And I think possibly you should be in agreement. And I firmly believe that women who earn money should be able to do with that money what they want to do with that money.
Hear, hear.
Is that okay?
Yes, that's very okay.
Yeah, all right. You can write Terry.
But I do agree with you that there is that unity in a family, you know, brings God's blessing, and
it's much more important.
You need to pray that God will change his heart.
And be at peace with your wife, that your prayers be not hindered. And I just believe that we need to have harmony, and God will.
Good word.
All right, what's next?
This is Andrew. He says, I am panic-stricken over if I'm really saved. I've been baptized once and have asked the Lord to forgive me for my sins and to come into my life many times. I've been told that these 3 actions will ensure my salvation, but how can I be so sure? How do I know I'm really saved?
The Bible says the Spirit bears witness with our spirit that we're the children of God. And we have a witness of the Spirit. I want to ask you, is there something in your life that you're holding on to that is wrong? Is there some sin there that you have committed that you haven't confessed? Is there something that you're doing that you know is wrong? If our conscience does not condemn us, then we have confidence before God. And if your conscience is condemning you, there's something going on. So whatever it is, maybe it's something you've done in the past that you need to confess before the Lord and get forgiveness. But if your sins are forgiven and you have confessed what's there, you will have peace with God. And peace with God is what we want. And Jesus said, my peace I give unto you. So it isn't, again, I want to tell you over and over again, it's not some set of formula. It's not some little gimmick. You've got to say a certain number of words in a certain order, and you got to go through this and pray again and again and again. When you have committed your life to Jesus and you have surrendered to him, from that moment on, he is your Savior and you're saved. But you know, if you have in your mind something that you've done that's unconfessed, then you won't have peace, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, the bottom line of all of that, even the things that we do, like baptism, is that it's an issue of the heart.
Exactly.
I mean, God wants to know that we're right with him.
That's it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for those questions. That's all.
Yeah, we have lots of wonderful questions that have come in. We're going to try to get to more and more of them each day. So
tomorrow.
We thank you for sending them.
All right. Well, that's all the time we've got for today's program. Tomorrow, parental advice for anyone who's ever had a child tell them no.
That would be all of us.
My wife's little dog bit her yesterday. Bit her because she wanted him to do something and the little dog didn't want to do it.
Dogs and children.
A dog would never bite me. All right, today we leave with these words from the Psalms. Your love, Lord, reaches to the heavens, your faithfulness to the skies. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
It hindered my ability to walk or run. I had to cancel lessons all the time and cancel all the programs that I had planned. And I saw my career gone. I had never really understood the purpose of money even and what my responsibilities were. And I always thought that we had to have a lot to give. And the more I gave, the more kids would come. I'd like to say, you know, it's my great skills or something. It's not. I'm giving to God. I'm obeying. I'm obedient. That's it. I chose CBN because it helped me find a way to help change the world for Christ. My business has grown 5 times what it was in 2005. 5 times that. I think any type of investment or any type of giving is an act of faith. To be honest with you, I can't wait to write the check. It's the best investment that I can imagine. You can't outgive God.